I still remember the moment when the weight of the entire world seemed to crush down on my shoulder. It was 1973, and I was standing on the set of Enter the Dragon, surrounded by executives, cameras, and crew members, all waiting for me to deliver the performance that would either make or break, or not just my career, but my entire vision for what Asian actors could represent in Western cinema. The pressure was suffocating. Every punch had to be perfect. Every expression had to convey power. Every movement had to justify the millions of dollars and countless dreams riding on this single film. But here's what those watching didn't see. Here's what the cameras couldn't capture. In that moment of crushing pressure, something extraordinary was happening inside me. I wasn't breaking under the weight. I was absorbing it, transforming it, preparing to release it as something far more powerful than anything I had ever created before. That day taught me the most profound truth about human potential, a truth that changed not just how I approached combat, but how I approached life itself. Pressure isn't your enemy. Pressure is your fuel. The force that feels like it's trying to destroy you is actually the same force that can transform you into something unbreakable. But here's the secret that most people never discover. You can't fight pressure. You can't resist it. You can't overcome it through sheer will or positive thinking. You can only absorb it, metabolize it, and release it as power. This isn't just philosophy. This is physics. This is the fundamental law that governs everything from martial arts to personal transformation. Think about a diamond. What creates a diamond? Pressure. Enormous, crushing pressure applied over time until carbon becomes something precious, something unbreakable, something that can cut through any material on Earth. The pressure doesn't destroy the carbon, it transforms it. Same force that could crush becomes the force that creates strength. It's the force that creates strength. But here's what's fascinating. The diamond doesn't resist the pressure. It doesn't fight against the geological forces. It absorbs them completely, allowing itself to be reformed at the molecular level, until what emerges is fundamentally different from what went in. You, carbon. You are carbon. Your life is the pressure. The question is, will you resist until you break, or will you absorb until you transform? Every challenge you face, every obstacle that seems impossible, every moment when you feel like the weight of the world is crushing you, that's not evidence that you're failing. That's not evidence that you're failing. That's evidence that you're being offered the opportunity to become diamond. But transformation requires a complete shift in how you relate to pressure itself. Let me take you back to Hong Kong, 1958. I was 17 years old, and my life was falling apart. My father wanted me to become an accountant, follow a safe, predictable path that would bring honor to the family. The traditional martial arts masters saw me as a rebellious student who questioned too much, pushed too hard, refused to accept ancient methods without understanding the principles behind them. My classmates at school viewed me as the troublemaker who started fights and disrupted classes. I was caught between worlds, belonging fully to none of them, feeling pressure from every direction to become someone I fundamentally wasn't. The pressure was unbearable. Every day brought new expectations, new demands, new reasons why I needed to change, to conform, to fit into boxes that felt like cages. I remember nights lying awake, feeling like my chest was being compressed by an invisible weight, struggling to breathe under the accumulated force of everyone else's vision for my life. I tried to resist. I fought against my father's expectations, rebelled against my teacher's methods, lashed out at anyone who tried to tell me who I should become. But resistance only made the pressure worse. The harder I fought, the more confined I felt. The more I struggled, the tighter the cage became. Then one night, something shifted. I was practicing alone in a small room, throwing punch after punch at the air, trying to release the frustration that had been building inside me for months. Suddenly, I stopped. In that moment of stillness, I realized something that would change everything. The pressure I had been fighting wasn't trying to destroy me. It was trying to shape me. Every expectation, every criticism, every force that felt like opposition was actually information. The pressure was showing me exactly what I needed to transform in order to become who I was meant to be. Instead of fighting against my father's concern for my future, I absorbed it and used it to fuel my determination to create a future worthy of that concern. Instead of resisting my teacher's criticism of my unorthodox methods, I absorbed their knowledge and used it as the foundation for developing something entirely new. Instead of struggling against the feeling of not belonging anywhere, I absorbed that displacement and used it to create my own space, my own way, my own expression of what was possible. This is what I mean by absorbing pressure. It's not passive acceptance. It's not giving in or giving up. It's the active process of taking the force that's pressing against you and allowing it to reshape you from the inside out. It's understanding that pressure is just energy, and energy can always be transformed. The question isn't whether you'll face pressure. The question is whether you'll learn to absorb it or spend your life being crushed by it. But absorption is only half of the equation. What you absorb, you must also release. And here's where most people get stuck. They learn to absorb pressure, to endure it, to survive under it, but they never learn to release it as power. They become strong, but they remain contained. They develop endurance, but they never discover expression. They learn to withstand force, but they never learn to generate force. This is why so many people can handle enormous pressure, but struggle to create anything meaningful with their lives. They've mastered absorption, but not release. When I first arrived in America in 1959, the pressure was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I was a Chinese teenager in a country that saw Asians as exotic curiosities at best, threats to be contained at worst. I couldn't get decent roles in movies because I was too Chinese for American audiences. I couldn't get respect in martial arts circles because my methods were too radical for traditional masters. I couldn't even get students for my classes because people didn't understand what I was teaching. Every door seemed closed. Every opportunity seemed blocked. Every path forward seemed impossible. The pressure to conform was enormous. Agents told me to take minor roles as villains or mystical sidekicks. Martial arts instructors suggested I stick to traditional forms that wouldn't threaten established hierarchies. Well-meaning friends advised me to find a more realistic career path. The logical thing would have been to absorb this pressure and use it to become what everyone expected me to become. But here's what I discovered. True power comes not from becoming what pressure wants you to become, but from becoming what pressure reveals you're capable of becoming. I absorbed the pressure of rejection. and used it to fuel my determination to create my own opportunities. I absorbed the pressure of being misunderstood and used it to refine my ability to communicate complex ideas simply. I absorbed the pressure of being dismissed and used it to develop an unshakable confidence in my own vision. But then came the crucial moment. I had to learn how to release all that absorbed pressure as creative power, as innovative action, as breakthrough performance. The release doesn't happen automatically. Absorption without release creates internal pressure that eventually becomes destructive. It's like filling a balloon with air, but never letting any out. Eventually, it bursts. I see this all the time. People who have learned to endure incredible pressure, who have developed amazing resilience, but who never learned to channel that energy into creation, into expression, into impact. They become pressure cookers instead of power generators. Learning to release absorbed pressure requires understanding the difference between explosion and expression. Explosion is uncontrolled release that destroys as much as it creates. Chaos. Expression is controlled release that transforms pressure into power, energy into action, potential into achievement. The difference lies in having a clear channel for the release, a specific direction for the energy, a focused intention for the transformation. Formation. This is where the martial arts taught me something that applies to every area of life. In combat, when an opponent applies pressure, you have three choices. You can resist the pressure and be overpowered by superior force. You can collapse under the pressure and be defeated by your own inability to withstand it. Or you can absorb the pressure and redirect it back toward your opponent with even greater force than they applied. This third option is what separates masters from students, champions from participants, leaders from followers. But redirection requires perfect timing, precise technique, and complete understanding of the forces involved. You can't absorb pressure too early or too late. You can't hold it too long or release it too quickly. You must feel the exact moment when absorption is complete and release becomes possible. This is as much art as science, as much intuition as technique. It requires years of practice, countless repetitions, and the willingness to fail repeatedly until the process becomes natural. Let me share with you the exact moment I discovered how to transform absorbed pressure into released power. It was during the filming of Fist of Fury in 1972. There was a scene where I had to fight multiple opponents while expressing the rage and frustration of a character who had been systematically oppressed and humiliated. The director wanted raw emotion, authentic fury, believable power. But here's the challenge. How do you access that level of intensity without being consumed by it? How do you channel genuine emotion without losing control of your performance? I realized that I could use every moment of pressure I had ever absorbed in my real life to fuel this fictional moment. Every rejection, every criticism, every obstacle, every force that had tried to limit me, I could draw upon all of that stored energy and release it through this character. But the release had to be controlled, focused, directed toward the specific outcome I wanted to achieve. I wasn't just expressing anger, I wasn't just releasing frustration, I was transforming absorbed pressure into artistic power. The result was explosive, but it was controlled explosion. Focused expression, directed energy. The intensity was real because it drew from real, absorbed pressure. But the expression was precise because it was channeled through years of training, discipline, and understanding. That scene became one of the most powerful moments in the film, not because I was angry, but because I had learned to transform anger into something far more useful. This principle applies to every area of your life where you face pressure. In your career, the pressure of competition, deadlines, and expectations can either crush you or fuel your breakthrough performance. In your relationships, the pressure of conflict, misunderstanding, and disappointment can either destroy connection or deepen intimacy. In your personal growth, the pressure of your own limitations, fears, and resistance can either keep you trapped or propel you toward transformation. The key is learning to see pressure not as something happening to you, but as something happening for you. They've learned to use pressure as fuel rather than fighting it as an enemy. But this mastery doesn't happen overnight. It requires what I call pressure training, the deliberate practice of exposing yourself to increasing levels of pressure in controlled environments so that you can develop your absorption and release capabilities. Just as you build physical strength by gradually increasing the weight you lift, you build pressure capacity by gradually increasing the challenges you willingly face. This means seeking out situations that stretch you, that push you beyond your current comfort zone, that force you to grow. It means taking on projects that seem slightly beyond your current capabilities. It means having conversations that feel risky. It means putting yourself in environments where you're not the expert, not the most experienced, not the most comfortable person in the room. Each of these experiences offers you the opportunity to practice absorbing pressure and releasing it as growth. The martial arts taught me that the best way to prepare for high-pressure situations is to create high-pressure situations in training. I didn't just practice techniques when I was calm and relaxed. I practiced them when I was tired, stressed, distracted, and under attack from multiple directions. I deliberately created pressure in controlled environments so that I could learn to function effectively under pressure in real situations. You can apply this same principle to any area of your life. If public speaking creates pressure for you, seek out opportunities to speak publicly in low-stakes environments. If difficult conversations create pressure, practice having difficult conversations about less important topics. If taking risks creates pressure, take small risks that allow you to practice your absorption and release mechanisms without catastrophic consequences if you fail. The goal isn't to eliminate pressure from your life. The goal is to develop such mastery over pressure that you can function at your highest level, regardless of how much pressure you're experiencing. In fact, you want to reach the point where pressure actually enhances your performance rather than detracting from it. This is what happens when you've truly mastered the absorption and release process. I remember the exact moment I knew I had achieved this mastery. It was during the filming of Enter the Dragon, in the scene where I had to deliver the famous Art of Fighting sequence. The pressure was enormous. The entire film's success seemed to hinge on this moment. The studio executives were watching. The director was nervous. The crew was nervous. The crew was tense. But as I stepped in front of the camera, something extraordinary happened. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the pressure, I felt energized by it. The higher the stakes became, the more focused I became. The more pressure I absorbed, the more powerful my performance became. That's when I knew I had learned to transform pressure into fuel rather than fighting it as an obstacle. Instead of being something that worked against me, it had become something that worked for me. This transformation is available to anyone willing to do the work of developing pressure mastery. But it requires consistent practice, patient development, and the willingness to face increasing levels of challenge. Most people avoid pressure whenever possible, which means they never develop the capability to handle it effectively when it becomes unavoidable. But if you deliberately seek out pressure in manageable doses, you can build your capacity gradually until you can handle levels of challenge that would overwhelm most people. The process begins with small pressures, minor challenges, manageable stresses. You practice absorbing these completely, feeling them fully, allowing them to reshape you without overwhelming you. Then you practice releasing the absorbed energy through your chosen expression channels, whether that's creative work, physical activity, intellectual pursuit, or service to others. Over time, you can handle larger pressures, more complex challenges, more intense stresses. But here's the crucial insight. The goal isn't to become invulnerable to pressure. The goal is to become increasingly skillful at transforming pressure into power. Even masters feel pressure. Even experts experience stress. Even champions face overwhelming challenges. The difference is that they've learned to use these forces as fuel for their performance rather than obstacles to their success. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Instead of asking, how can I avoid this pressure? You learn to ask, how can I use this pressure? Instead of thinking, this challenge is too much for me, you learn to think, this challenge is exactly what I need to grow. Instead of feeling, I can't handle this stress, you learn to feel, this stress is providing me with energy I can direct toward my goals. The shift doesn't happen through positive thinking or mental tricks. It happens through actual experience of successfully absorbing pressure and releasing it as power. Each time you navigate a challenging situation successfully, you build confidence in your ability to handle even greater challenges. Each time you transform stress into achievement, you strengthen your belief that pressure can be fuel rather than burden. But the process requires patience with yourself as you develop these capabilities. There will be times when you absorb pressure but struggle to release it effectively. There will be moments when you try to take on more challenge than you're ready for and feel overwhelmed. There will be periods when your expression channels feel blocked and the internal pressure builds uncomfortably. This is all part of the learning process. The key is to approach pressure training the same way you would approach physical training. You don't expect to lift heavy weights on your first day in the gym. You don't expect to run a marathon without months of preparation. Similarly, you shouldn't expect to master pressure absorption and release without consistent practice over time. Start with manageable challenges and gradually increase the difficulty as your capabilities develop. Remember that every pressure you successfully absorb and release makes you stronger, more capable, more resilient. Every challenge you transform into growth expands your capacity for even greater challenges. Every obstacle you convert into opportunity increases your ability to see possibility where others see only problems. your knee problems, you're not just surviving pressure, you're evolving through pressure. This evolution is what separates those who thrive under pressure from those who merely endure it. Thriving requires seeing pressure not as something to be minimized, but as something to be optimized. It requires understanding that the right amount of pressure at the right time, applied in the right way, can accelerate your development beyond what would be possible in low-pressure environments. Think of pressure as resistance training for your character, your capabilities, your consciousness. Just as muscles grow stronger when they work against resistance, your inner capacities grow stronger when they work under pressure. But just as physical training requires proper form, adequate recovery, and progressive overload, pressure training requires proper absorption techniques, adequate release mechanisms, and gradual increases in challenge. The ultimate goal is to reach what I call pressure mastery, the point where you can absorb virtually any level of pressure and release it as focused power toward your chosen objectives. At this level, pressure becomes your friend rather than your enemy. Challenge becomes opportunity rather than obstacle. Stress becomes energy rather than burden. You stop avoiding difficult situations and start seeking them out because you know they contain the raw material for your continued growth. But mastery is not a destination you reach and then stop growing. It's a continuous process of expanding your capacity to handle greater challenges and transform them into greater achievements. The master is simply someone who has learned to grow through pressure rather than despite pressure, who uses challenging circumstances as fuel for excellence rather than excuses for mediocrity. As we approach the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a challenge that will test everything we've discussed. For the next 30 days, I want you to actively seek out one source of pressure each day. Not overwhelming pressure that could damage you, but manageable pressure that will stretch your current capabilities. This could be a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, a project that seems slightly beyond your current skills, a physical challenge that pushes your limits, or a creative endeavor that requires you to risk failure. Each day, practice conscious absorption of this pressure. Feel it fully without immediately jumping into resistance mode. Notice where you feel it in your body. What thoughts arise in response? What emotions emerge? Then practice conscious release through your chosen expression channels. Create something, achieve something, contribute something that transforms the absorbed pressure into tangible value. Keep a journal of this process. Record what pressures you chose to face, how you absorbed them, how you released them, and what you created or achieved as a result. Pay attention to patterns in your absorption and release mechanisms. Notice which types of pressure you handle most effectively and which ones challenge you most significantly. Observe how your capacity expands over the course of the month. By the end of 30 days, you'll have direct experience of pressure as fuel rather than obstacle. You'll have evidence of your own ability to transform challenge into growth, stress into strength, obstacles into opportunities. You'll have begun to develop the pressure mastery that can serve you for the rest of your life. Remember, the pressure you're facing right now, whatever it is, isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to forge you into something stronger, more capable, more resilient than you currently are. More resilient than you currently are. The force that feels overwhelming is actually the force that can propel you toward breakthrough. The challenge that seems impossible is actually the challenge that can reveal capabilities you didn't know you possessed. Absorb the pressure completely. Feel it fully. Allow it to reshape you from the inside out. Then release it as focused power toward your chosen objectives. Transform every challenge into fuel, every obstacle into energy, every moment of overwhelming pressure into an opportunity for unprecedented growth. This is the way of the warrior. This is the path of mastery. This is how you become someone who doesn't just survive pressure but thrives under it. Someone who doesn't just endure challenge but grows through it. Someone who doesn't just handle stress but transforms it into success. The pressure is waiting. The power is within you. The choice is yours. Will you resist until you break, or will you absorb until you transform? Will you fight the pressure until it defeats you, or will you embrace it until it empowers you? The answer to that question will determine not just how you handle your current challenges, but who you become through the process of handling them. Absorb the pressure. Release the power. Become who you're meant to be through the alchemy of conscious transformation. The diamond you're capable of becoming is waiting on the other side of the pressure you're currently facing. Let the pressure do its work. Let it reshape you. Let it transform you. Let it forge you into something unbreakable, something precious, something that can cut through any obstacle life places in your path.